So if you were to describe these as being kind of red, orange, and green, right? That hotel hospitality is in the red zone and multifamily is in the green zone. How long does it take before that all starts to look orange and red, do you suppose? Because we've only had one first of the month so far, right? When rents became due. So that was April 1, and then we have May 1, which will take us to 60 days past due. And then June will give us 90 days. And at 90 days, you start to get into non-curable loan scenarios, right, Willie? And it makes it harder for lenders to forgive, and they become non-performing loans on books, etc. So it becomes much more complicated, doesn't it, the longer this lasts?
So I guess there are two sides to that. One is that if you remain focused on hospitality and retail, those loans are either in forbearance or they're going into foreclosure. So there will be that pain is already there, to your point about using red. Office, they're longer term leases, typically 7-10 year leases. And so as a result of it, office properties should continue to perform perfectly fine. It's the question of renewals. It's the question of, does a WeWork stop paying rent, as they've announced that they're going to on many of the properties that there are tenants in? And what does that do to overall rent rolls? And do you start to see defaults in the office space? As it relates to industrial, the real question is, how long does the crisis last for? And how many of those industrial centers are providing logistical services for an Amazon, who is still operating to a great degree? Or is it the nail salon that doesn't need any more of its, shiny nail polish? And so somebody who has a distribution facility for nail enamel, they're still sitting on all their product. They're not getting new product from China, and that's not moving through. So the distributor isn't making any money. The distributor has financial pain. That then goes to them not paying their lease. And then all of a sudden now the owner of the industrial has a real problem. So I don't know, who knows how long that lasts for and where the pain points are. Clearly, those industrial centers that have more of a credit tenant base to them will do better right now, because those larger distribution companies are right now faring better than the smaller ones. On the multi-side of things, the rent rolls for the month of April have been surprisingly strong. If you look at our portfolio, which is extensive, we had expected there would be some fall off on collections, and there's been almost none. And that is actually before all of the payments that are coming out of the CARES Act have gotten to people's bank accounts. The individual checks that the federal government put in the CARES Act have not arrived. If you had direct deposit, it arrived last Friday, but nobody who paid their April rent between the 1st and the 10th of April had that money in their bank account. Nobody who's filed for unemployment insurance has gotten a single check that has the $600 per week additional payment from the CARES Act. So the CARES Act only lasts through July. So to your point, as it relates to, well, when does the money start flowing? It has only started flowing now. If you look at how much of a boost the CARES Act gives to people filing for unemployment insurance, the average state in America pays roughly $350 to $360 a week for unemployment insurance. But the CARES Act adds a full $600 to each one of those checks. So depending on the state you're in, generally speaking today, people are making taking home $960 to $970 a week. So that adds up to just under $4,000 a month under the CARES Act that people are receiving for being unemployed right now. That total is actually more than the average American worker made in Q4 of 2019, with 3.6% unemployment in the United States of America, an exceedingly tight labor market. So the real question there becomes, if people are getting this income from the federal government, which millions and millions of people have filed for, they have the very real opportunity and capability to pay their rent at a rate that's actually below 30% of take-home pay, which is the threshold that everyone talks about, sort of affordable rent and unaffordable rent. The question really comes into, do they continue to pay their rent, or do they start to hoard cash because they don't know how long the CARES Act is going to last for? And are they afraid about some other expense, such as food or pharmaceuticals, that they want to hold on to money for? But as it relates to the money getting into the system, it wasn't there in April. It is coming in right now, April into May. And the April collections were much better than anticipated. So we shall clearly see come May and June. But for right now, from a multifamily standpoint, the great majority of people, 98% of people, the question is the lower quality assets, the Cs, and whether those income tiers are going to pay rent. And that has been the one place where we have seen some lag in rent rolls of people not paying their rent on time, not nearly to the degree we thought, but there is more in that sort of lower rung. And again, going back to the point I made as it relates to unemployment insurance, anybody in that lower rung who has filed for unemployment benefits hasn't gotten that step up. So there's actually a viewpoint here on those lower sort of C-class assets that you actually might get better collections in May once they've started to get these dollars from the federal government than you got in April, where the dollars hadn't started flowing and they'd lost their job.